There's one simple.
Okay. All right. Good evening to all of you from Toronto, Canada, and my sincere greetings on Vesak weekend to all of you. And I would like to begin today's bi-weekly sutra discussion with this metta, as Buddha said, Sabbe satta bhavantu sukhitatta. May all sentient beings live a happy life. So with this thought in mind, let's pay our respect to the Buddha by reciting Namo Tassa 3 times together. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. I pay my respect and homage to him, the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the fully enlightened Buddha. Dear Venerable Sirs, and of course we don't have bhikkhunis today. Maybe they are going to join later. Dear friends in Dhamma, it's such a great joy for us to have this bi-weekly sutra discussion on the Vesak weekend. So I would like to wish all of you happy Vesak with the blessings of the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha, and happy spring and happy summer. Finally, we are going to enjoy the summer after a long winter. So before we get into the discussion on today's topic, I would like to introduce our venerable monks to our devotees. So today we are very fortunate and it's our good karma to have Bhante Bodhi, the most venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi among us for this discussion. Bhante Bodhi doesn't need any introduction. We all know who he is and all people know Bhante Bodhi. So it's such a great joy to have you, Bhante, among us for today's discussion. And also among us, we have Bhante Yoga Vacharahula joining the discussion from Washington, D.C. And Bhante Rahula actually doesn't need any introduction. He is also very well known. And Bhante Rahula tries to participate in this bi-weekly sutta discussion whenever he is free. So we are very happy to have him among us. And we have Venerable Saranapala Thero joining the discussion from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Then we have Bhante Katugastota Uparatana Nayak Mahatero joining the discussion from Washington, D.C. And then we have Bhante Pesala joining the discussion from all the way from Sri Lanka. It's early morning for him. I think it's 3:30. So it's good to have you. And then we have Venerable Digale Somoshatero joining the discussion from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Then we have Venerable Shanta Sobana joining the discussion from Los Angeles, California. And then we have Venerable Trudeau joining the discussion from Florida. And then we have Bhante Jinananda joining the discussion from Ottawa, Canada, and also who else we have here? Okay, other monks might be joining the discussion later on. So I would like to welcome all the venerable monks with great respect and gratitude. And also I would like to give a warm welcome to our lay devotees who are here on Zoom platform with the monks. It's a great joy to have you as well. I would like to give a warm welcome to our friends who are joining the discussion or watching this program on Facebook and YouTube Live. So I have a very humble request from all of you and our lay devotees, whoever is here or whoever is watching this program, Facebook Live or YouTube Live, please feel free to share this program, this discussion in your social media timelines, in your Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram or TikTok or whatever platform you use. Please feel free to share this in the social media timelines for the greater well-being of all people. And it's good to share this Dhamma. This, as Buddha said, Sabbadhanang Dhammadana Jinati, the gift of Dhamma excels all other gifts. So on Vesak Day, this is the best thing you could give to people for their own spiritual and emotional well-being. And last Friday was the official Vesak Day, Vesak Full Moon Day. I don't know, last Thursday, May 4th, except Sri Lanka, other Buddhist countries celebrated Vesak, Buddha Purnima. And Sri Lanka celebrated Vesak Full Moon Day on May 5th. And then all the temples in the West had Vesak celebrations on weekends. For example, at our temple here in Mississauga, Toronto, we had Vesak Dhamma programs on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Yesterday, we had more than 300 lay devotees coming to the temple in white outfits, observing the 8 precepts and staying the all day, listening to the Dhamma and meditating and doing the chanting, performing Buddha Puja. And also in the evening, we had more than 500 people coming to the temple for Vesak celebration. So I'm very positive all of you had the same type of programs at your temples. So since this is the Vesak weekend, we thought of having a discussion on the Vesak. So when I sent an invitation to Bhante Bodhi to see his availability for today's discussion, and I received a very positive reply from him, and with a suggestion, Bhante Bodhi suggested that we should have a discussion on this issue, this idea. The Buddha's Parinibbana took place in the month of Visakha is problematic. And even we kind of remember we had the similar discussion last year, and it was good discussion. And even today we are going to have more insights about this issue. And also Bhante Yogavaccha Rahula suggested another idea. How do the 3 auspicious events in Buddha's life pertain to us personally, especially to the monastics? So I thought today we should have a discussion on these 2 issues. And I would like to begin with Bhante Bodhi. I think he's saying that this idea, the Parinibbana, it took place in this month, in the month of May, Visakha month, and that is problematic. And my I would like to respectfully ask Bhante Bodhi, why do you think it's so problematic? But you have to unmute.
Yeah, I spoke about this last year and I gave the reasons last year. I'm afraid that if I keep on presenting the arguments, I'm going to become an outcast in the Theravada Buddhist world. And maybe if I decide I want to pay a visit to Sri Lanka and I go to apply for a visa, they will treat me with stamp my passport persona non gratis, not welcome to the country.
Nobody's going to reject you and deny you.
Yeah.
You're such a unique monk among us, and I think people and we would like to hear your insights.
Yeah. Okay. First of all, you have to recognize that the idea that all three events, these major events in the life of the Buddha, that they all took place on the full moon of May, this is a idea that seems to be unique to the Theravada school. It's not shared in the Mahayana traditions,
Yeah.
which assign these three events to different days. And what's interesting, at least in Tibetan Buddhism, maybe the Chinese tradition as well, they regard the passing away or parinirvana of the Buddha is taking place in the month of February. And I found two pieces of evidence for this in the Parinibbana Sutta. Okay, first is this is after the Buddha has spent his last rainy season at Vesali. He goes with Ananda. He asked Ananda to accompany him to the Chapala shrine, the Chapala Chaitya outside Vesali. And that's where he says that if anyone has developed the four bases of psychic power and fully perfected them, then he could live on for the rest of the aeon if he so wished. And he makes a statement three times as a kind of hint to Ananda. Ananda fails to pick up this hint. And then the Buddha says, actually, he says Mara then comes to the Buddha, and Mara pleads with the Buddha to pass away, to attain parinibbana. And then the Buddha says to Mara, he says, do not trouble yourself, evil one. The parinirvana of the Tathagata will take place before long. 3 months from now, the Tathagata will pass away, will attain parinibbana. Okay, so now this is taking place after the last rainy season. So the rainy season will come to an end, could be middle of October, late October. So let's just assume that the Buddha is still remaining in the vicinity of Vesali, maybe another 2 weeks. So maybe it's the beginning of November, end of October, beginning of November. So 3 months from the beginning of November, let's say December, January, February. Okay, so it seems that February is the month in the Western calendar that the Buddha will pass away, late January or early February. So that's one piece of evidence. The other piece of evidence, let me find it. Okay, this is when the Buddha arrives at Kusinara, and then he has Ananda spread out the robe. Whoops, excuse me. He has Ananda spread out the robe, and then he lies down on the robe between the twin sal trees. Then the text, this is the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, says, at that time, the twin sal trees broke out in full bloom. This is a translation, though it was not the season of flowering. Let me see if I could find the Pali text here. Yatena kopana samayena yamaka sala sabba pali pula honti akala pupehi, not the time of flowering. Okay, now the time in which the trees will start to bring forth flowers in India, in northern India, will be precisely the month of maybe April and May. So that would be the appropriate time for flowering. So if the trees start to bring forth flower out of season, it can't be April or May, but it must be some other time. And since the Buddha said earlier that he would pass away 3 months after he spoke with Ananda outside of Vesali, it seems, as I said, late January, early February would be the appropriate time for the passing away of the Buddha.
Mhm.
Okay, but though we have these textual hints, we don't have to adhere to that idea. It's been a long-standing tradition that the full moon of May marks the birth, enlightenment, passing away of the Buddha. So let's all celebrate those events.
That's the established tradition,
Yeah,
established view and idea. And I think Bhante Bodhi, even in India, like they have Vaishaka Mela, the Vaishaka celebration, right?
yeah,
That normally from mid-April to mid May
yeah.
or something like that. So maybe Buddha was born in April, or he became
That
it.
is that is quite possible. I mean, I would say that the date of the birth is most reliable.
Yeah.
Though I wonder whether there are any canonical texts that speak about the Buddha as his birth is taking place in the month of Vaisakha.
Yeah. And I'm just wondering whether the how we have the cherry blossoms in the springtime,
Yeah,
or, from maybe first week or second week or late March, even in
yeah,
Japan,
yeah.
the cherry blossoms we see. I'm wondering whether the Sala tree and the cherry tree are the same. If that's the same, no, after the winter, maybe all these trees have the nature of blossoming.
Yeah, that is the normal time for them to blossom,
Yeah,
would be, you know, late April, from middle of April to the middle of May.
yeah. And also in Mahana tradition, they have a Bodhi day, established day for as a December 8th. And do you have any clue why they celebrate Bodhi Day?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, I know that they celebrate it. I think it comes out on roughly December 8th on the Western calendar.
Yeah.
But what is the background to that tradition? I don't know.
Does anyone have any clue? Or I don't know. This is open to discussion. As Bhante Bodhi pointed out, this Parinirvana may not have taken place in May, maybe some
Hmm.
months. But the established tradition is we celebrate these three events
Hmm.
on the same
Hmm.
day, like full moon day of May.
Hmm.
Maybe that established view. Like, do you have any clue, Bhante Bodhi, when it came into being, this established view? Like, these three events took place on the same day, on the full moon day of May.
I think it's mentioned in the commentaries of Buddha Gosa.
Ah,
So this was certainly by the 4th, 5th century
yeah.
already this idea had been established.
Mm.
We don't have any earlier evidence.
Maybe Venerable Buddha Gosa, the famous commentator, Takata, must have a reason for to establish such an idea.
Um,
Maybe,
it would have probably almost certainly have been an established tradition that he found and when he came to Sri Lanka.
Maybe he was kind of the smart to establish such a day, like how even in Western world they have established this Christmas day on December 25th is a Christmas day. But
Yeah, and I think that there's pretty fair evidence that Jesus of Nazareth was not born
yeah,
on the day corresponding to December 25th.
yeah.
What scholars say is that that was a kind of pagan festival day. And so the early Christians, in order to sort of merge Christianity with the pagan beliefs, dated the birth of Jesus to December 25th.
So maybe somebody had already thought about this, okay, we need to celebrate Buddha's life, birth, enlightenment, and parinibbana. And so maybe they have come to a conclusion of all these three events took place in the same day, the full moon day. But most of the important events of Buddha's life seem to have taken place on full moon day. But could it be before or after full moon?
Yeah, I don't see any reason that of necessity that they would take place on full moon days. It's just maybe the full moon day is considered especially auspicious, and so for that reason they would assign these events to the full moon day.
Yeah. Okay, Bante, both we
Can
have.
I add something?
Yeah, Bante, Rahula, yes, please go ahead. Yeah.
Perhaps Venerable Buddhaghosa, assigned these three events to the same day because they were kind of connected. I mean, the birth, enlightenment, and parinibbana, they form a very distinct kind of connection. You could say part of the same process, and so, and also for the sake of easy remembering. And so you want to remember all of those events on the same day. So maybe he assigned it like that.
Okay.
Yeah, though I don't think Buddhaghosa would have been the one who originated that idea. I think it would have been probably an older tradition that had already been established in Sri Lanka, perhaps also in South India. I just don't know.
Yeah, that doesn't. This is just an idea. There is just, Bante Bodhi. Maybe how Emperor Ashoka,
Yeah,
when he became the disciple of the Buddha or claimed to have become a follower of the Buddha.
Yeah.
How he was taken for a pilgrimage to all important events.
Yeah.
The sites or so there was was it Venerable Upagupta who was taking the emperor to those places, like this is the birthplace of the Buddha. Maybe he gave the idea, okay, on this day. And this is the place where he was became the Buddha enlightened, where this is the place where he attained Mahaparinibbana. So maybe in the 3rd century BCE, so maybe that notion was there, and Venerable Buddhaghosa and given interpretation established the tradition. Could
yeah, no, I just don't know. Yeah.
Okay, so we have some hands raised. Let's begin with, I think it was Venerable Shanta Sobana who raised the first hand. Right there. Venerable Shanta Sobana from Los Angeles.
Thank you very much, Venerable Sirs, and especially in front of the Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi and Venerable Bante Yogavachara Raula and our Uparatana Nayaka Hamduru and also Saranapala Nayaka Hamduru. So I really pay my homage to these all venerable monks, and because we used to learn the Dhamma from all the senior monks. Yeah. But at the same time, when I saw this topic today, I thought, how Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi, such like this scholar monk came in this Vesak full moon day, came like this topic. because when it come to the very deep Buddha's teaching, we all know this tangling with this timing and discussing about the history, because the history itself a story, and even for anything, and we will never find the such a exact solution for this kind of things, because there are people come with different ideas. Because first we have to see from where we look, from where we first we have to look our point of reference, the place where we sitting. Because when it come to that what the argument our Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi bring, and with this this calendar, that Western calendar. So the Western calendar introduced by the Julius Caesar, and after that Pope Gregory 1582, he introduced, and he modified this calendar, and still he also had some kind of different problem with this solar calendar. Because when it come to 365 days, and when it go by calculating, some month come with the different dates, like ending with the 29 days, and ending with the 30 days, and ending with the 31 days. So just imagine if we go backward with this time scale, like 2,567 years backward, and maybe where are we going to end? And at the same time, when it comes to this moon calendar, especially most of the Eastern countries, in the full moon also, it's not going to come exactly the same day at the same month. It's a different. That like this month come maybe the first of the month, and maybe the full moon next year it will come the middle of the month. So it's kind of like a changing. And especially when it comes to the Buddha's teaching, that we have to look is, of course, when it comes to the scholars, and when it comes to research, when it comes to educational part, and when it comes to study part, these are very matters. The history is important. But at the same time, we all know what the Buddha taught, appamadena sampadeta, that it's kind of like we have to see what is the major and what is the minor. Because in the conventional life, we can argue with the things, but at the same time, as we know in our monastic tradition, when someone, when the monk gained the high ordination, sometimes if that the monk is not complete the right, the age limit according to the birthday, what our senior monks did, they can add another 10 months from the very, like kind of like when we came to the mother's womb, they take it as the kind of like the birthday. So kind of like that, they add something, and they adjust when it comes to our traditional things. So especially we have to look into the deeper level and see in 2,600 years backward, and today we are here in this world, and we have very limited time. We don't have much time to deal with kind of like minor things when it comes to our monastic life. So it is very important for us to find out what is the most important thing we have to discuss when it comes to our day-to-day life, especially when it comes to dharma. And so this way, if we look, we have to see what the major message out of the Buddha's teaching we can gain. So when it comes to that, if we go to the Venerable Yogavachara Rahula Bhante gave that topic, that what we can get out of this all three incidents. So that, and in that way, rather than go into what is the exactly the, even we find out, okay, this is the exactly month or the day, it's not going to change anything. And we can come with some another person can come with the different ways, and it's going to become a more tangle. And I think this is, like Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi, I really appreciate your all the teachings, and I really read, and it become kind of like a foundation for us. And last year also, and had this discussion, and this year also bringing, it's not going to change anything. And I think that we need to change the topic.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
I wasn't so happy with this topic, but Venerable Saranapala insisted that I speak about.
No, and it's a kind of, I think it's good to make an awareness of this. You know, this is a scholarly discussion, and in a scholar world, they bring up all these questions. You know, it's a question about finding the exact day the things that events that took place. But those days they had no calendar. The only calendar was the moon.
Yeah, actually, when we go to schools, these children ask, because especially when they study the Eastern history, they ask about this. And not only the Buddhas, regarding the Buddha, that all the religion leaders and all the spiritual history have this kind of situation. They can't go to the exact day. It's but they mainly just try to bring that incident around some days, and somehow they try to bring the teachings out of the incident. So somehow we have to understand, it is still, we have to be happy still. We have a day to celebrate Buddha's the birth, enlightenment, and the day. Why? Because by the time this also going to go away.
But if we had them on 3 different days, then we get
more celebrations one day.
Cool. Yeah, more celebrations.
No, it not going to be. Then it's going to kind of like become very less, and it's going to become not like this strong.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so let me see now, Bhante Jirananda from Ottawa. What's in your mind?
Thank you, Bhante. It's so nice to hear from everyone, and we still hear from Bhante Rahul and Bhikkhu Bodhi and Bhante Santasabana. So I just wanted to tell something, but now I think I should not. Anyway, thank you, Bhante Bhikkhu Bodhi, for coming with your very logical analysis on the chronology of the Buddha's life with some events. I thought that the second point you mentioned would be there is a possibility of change, because it happened in 6th century BC, and then the pattern of seasonal changes is going to change every 100 years, maybe 50 years.
Yeah.
So that maybe the second point would be vary. But as you said, the first point would be legitimate. Somehow I thought that there were only 3 seasons, like Hemanta, Vasana, and Gimhan in Pali. And sometime Vasana season ends to the end of November, according to lunar calendar. So if Buddha said that I'm going to attain parinirvana in 3 months' time, at the end of December, it could go either to March, or at the end of March, closer to the second week of April, and so forth. Anyway, I think discussing this kind of unclear points would not be harming to for our Shraddha about the Buddha, because we are trying to dig in the ground and find the true information. So that's what I wanted to tell. And at the same time, the Buddha has, please correct me if I'm wrong, Buddha has talked about the attainment to enlightenment and also passing away into parinirvana very clearly. When we go to the Acharya Abhuta Dhamma Sutta, nowhere he mentioned that he came to this world on the full moon day of May, but he has mentioned that those marvelous and extraordinary things happened to the Bodhisattva and also the Tathagata. So Venerable Ananda say all these things. So That is one thing I always thinking why he, at least give a clue about it. And when he talks about the attainment to enlightenment and also passing away, there are more information than the birth. So this kind of things come to our mind when Vesak season come into effect. So these are nice ideas to bring out Shraddha. I think that's what I wanted to share, Bante.
My understanding is, Venerable Ananda was the personal attendant. He knew exactly what Buddha was doing. And maybe he had a journal, maybe not. At the Patama Sanghi, the first council, the great elder, the most venerable Mahakassapa, Arhat Mahatera, could have asked these questions from Venerable Ananda, then he could have said that. Maybe he did, but again, in the history of Buddhism, there was some persecutions by the Hindu fundamentalists, and maybe they destroyed the textbooks or literature. And maybe we had something, but we lost. So, but then Venerable Buddha Gosa had to come up with with the established view. Okay, Buddha was born, attained enlightenment, attained Mahaparinibbana on this day, this month. So thank you, Bhante Janananda, for sharing your idea. Now, Venerable Trudell from Florida, what's in your mind?
Salutations to all of the venerables and most venerables. It's an honor to be here, a privilege to be here. Thank you for having me. So last year when this subject came up, I really wanted to object, like Venerable Santa Sobana, but I am just a young monk on here, and I would not dare because I would be so mortified. I focused on the clinical aspect of the 3 auspicious occasions of the Buddha. And last year was, I think, more, I don't know, it was more challenging and more quite of a provocative, active back and forth on this subject. So here in Florida, where I reside, we have a lot of Mahayanan temples more than Theravadan temples, and they actually have to break up the dates apart so that it doesn't overlap each other, giving the lay people what I call and coin the term a victory lap around the city. All in 1 month, you can actually do this victory lap in exploring the different culture, tradition, and the way how different temples celebrate Vesak. It's quite unique, and it gives everyone a chance. Also, the working times of the people who are, for Vietnamese, mostly nail technicians, doctors, lawyers, here in town. I believe that we've come to dilution, not just only with the American Standard English, but so is everything else across all of the Gospels. I mean, if we are debating on the 3 auspicious occasions, people also debate on the Holy Sabbath Day in the Christianity world, whether it lies on Saturday or Sunday. So we've by and through time, just like the previous venerables have mentioned, we've gotten relaxed, and it is by and through these discussions that brings back the academic standpoint and the chronological timeline standpoint. But realistically, the practicality of it is due to places and what's going on, and sometimes you can't hold it on the exact direct days. I present that every day is an opportunity for us to for me, for example, I would consider myself as a clinical Buddhist monk. So that means I'm giving students direct individualized attention to hear their story, to practice Buddhist psychotherapy, and to use the opportunity when we visit the monastery, the sites of the Buddha, all of the statues, to remind them of the auspicious occasions that have taken place. Because students come at different times of the year and from different places across the US, I take that opportunity to remind them, and often. Venerable Saranampala hold, perhaps you are one of the few that holds daily discussions. And from a clinical standpoint, it's so important because the human's job is actually, the human's primary job is to forget. We forget so often. And for Christians, they go to church every Sunday. And even more so for Buddhists, waiting on the 3 occasions or certain holidays perhaps could be too long, and so much can transpire, so much unwholesomeness can transpire all in one day, all in 1 week, all in 1 month. And so I think in modern day Buddhism, the practice of it should be to reflect on it daily, to reflect on the 4 Noble Truths, the birth, the death, and every occasion we have to remind ourselves of the Mahaparinibbana would include local cemeteries, funeral homes, in our talks that shakes up people. I find it a mixture of joy, fun, lights, auspicious events in the celebration of Vesak, in Sri Lanka, in Vietnam, across the world. But then when you look at the details of the celebration, it also reminds us of the hell realm, death. So it's that middle way of reminding how life, to be careful, to be cautious with life, and not to really indulge in happiness and joy all of the time, and to remember that where there is pleasure, there's pain on the flip side of that. Where there's fame, there's defame across that. But yeah, for I guess what I'm trying to say is for for us here in Florida, for me here in Florida, every day is an opportunity to reflect on the key pertinent teachings and to reflect daily. Thank you for having
me. Thank you very much, Rudel. Bante Kusala from Boston raised his hand. Bante Kusala, feel free to say something, whatever Bante Bodhi said. And I also want to quickly go to our next question. And people are asking me to go to the next one. Okay, Bante Kusala.
Namami Sanghan. Thank you, Bante, for the opportunity. Well, I'm not sure if I will spend much time on Buddha's Parinibbana, the passing away, but I had 3 points that I wanted to raise about it also. So I'll quickly go through them. The first one is, if we know for sure that Mahaparinibbana Sutta itself is credible, or the other reference that we are using is actually, because some of the sutras we know their language is different, there are later developments, and someone who didn't actually calculate very well may have written these or may have added these. And of course, we all know that when something is passed to us by tradition, Kalama Sutta says that we should not accept it because it came from the tradition. But I think it speaks more about the practical aspects of Dhamma. And on this one occasion, I remember meeting one of my professors and asking this Dhamma question about Metta Sahagata Sutta, that is in Sanyutta Nikaya, where something is speaking about the 4th jhana or the 3rd jhana or something else. And then his response was so important to me. He said, someone can say this is third jhana, someone can say this is something else, but it's just a yes and no answer, and spending too much time on that will not make a good research. So that kind of changed my way of thinking about so many topics that came up along the way of studying and practicing. So that was helpful, and I know most of us as monks, we at part of our time we spend on studying and becoming good at sutras and Pali language, and then at the same time we all strive to meditate and realize what the Dhamma it means to us. So I think that second aspect is what I really like to explore. But I'm also grateful to Bhante Bhikkhu Bodhi for bringing this up, and it's only from such thinking and scholarship that we will actually even think about existence of that kind of conundrum, question that is interesting, definitely, and I'm not ever qualified to maybe dig deeper into that subject. But what, because since Vesak is a season of celebration, but for me, it has always been a time of practicing more meditation, because I had this weird idea that by 35, I should also be enlightened. And I'm, because the tradition taught me that the Buddha became enlightened when he was 35. So, and numbers add up to it, because he did the 6 years of self-mortification and then searching of truth, and finally he became enlightened. And but I paid attention to the first sermon of the Buddha. In that, what the Buddha says is that Majjhima Patipada Tathagatena Abhisambuddha. What he realized was the middle path, Majjhima Patipada. And then he spent about 49 days putting together this Dhamma and what it means to people and what it means to develop something and then feel like that it has been developed. Not really feel like, but feeling accomplished that it has been developed. And then his message also underlies that we should abandon any extremes like self-modification, even attachment to your virtues. Sometimes you just practice virtues, but then you are an angry person. And this doesn't really go very well. Like you are very disciplined, but you are an angry person. What is what's the meaning of this practice of virtues that you are practicing? And does it really make you a different person? So I think that way we can kind of think about the value of Dhamma together with the discipline that we are trying to maintain and keep. And with that, I would definitely pay attention to the other aspect, like practicing or following indulgence, like sensual pleasure. That's another extreme. And then the Buddha said, abandon these two because I have experienced them. And I know when you study some Prakrit traditions, they have detailed about some extreme practices of self-mortification, and that's why the Buddha asked us to abandon it. And he specifically said, sometimes, they had the belief that it leads to moksha. So if it starts snowing right now and they just don't move, they stay until the snow stops. And that kind of a practice can get you killed. But then when you are killed with that kind of practice, they say he was so dedicated to his practice, so he attained moksha, liberation. So it was praised at the time. And if it happens that you are walking and then it became dark and you stop right there and you stay without moving, and that way, even if you are hungry, you don't make a move, and even if you die at that time, that way you attain moksha, liberation. So these things were very common at the time, and the 5 companions of the Buddha encouraged the ascetic Gautama to practice these. And they had the idea that he too will attain moksha. But then he realized, no, that's not true. Let me find what is actually needed in order for us to have the freedom from dukkha, freedom from suffering. That is what happens, because we materialize nibbana itself, and we think that it is a thing that we can achieve, which is not. It's not a place or a. It's unconstructed. What actually happens is ignorance disappears, avijja disappears, and dukkha disappears, and craving has been abandoned. And if we pay attention to the middle path, for example, right view talks about the Four Noble Truths, and right here we can experience it, how an experience comes into being, and how what we think, what we perceive as past actually is perceived right now. What we perceive as future is perceived right now. So past and future are both delusions. But the Buddha was talking about pachupannan jayang dhammam, like in the Kandaraka Sutta, I think pachupannan jayang dhammam, whatever the experience that has conditioned right now, tatta tatta vipassati. You analyze it with insight right here and right now, and you see the impermanence in the experience arising. But we can, of course, like a flickering light bulb, it's easy for us to see something that is arising, but what we fail to see is something that is ceasing. And when we begin to develop yoniso manasikara, like seeing the experience, the roots of the experience coming into being and cessation happening right there, then we stop labeling it as my experience. You see, mind creates an eye to see, mind creates an ear to see, to hear. And only when it is created that you can cognize something and experience it, and other times it disappears. We are accepting something as ours, something that doesn't even exist all the time. The physicality, it vanishes. And the Buddha said, call this body yours if you want, but never call this mind yours, because the body definitely perishes in so many years, but the mind, it continuously changes. It's like the speed of a light bulb. It's so fast that we can't even see the arising and passing away. So the Buddha said, never call this yours. And that way, you are able to see that these experiences, arising and passing away, it gives you so much joy when you start to realize it, because it has been never revealed to the world at the time. And when it was revealed, even those wealthiest people, like the right disciple of the Buddha, Sariputta, and the left disciple, Moggallana, they had great wealth, but they found joy in realizing, yankinchi samute dhamman sabbantan nirodha dhamma, whatever the dhamma that has arisen has the nature of passing away. And that was more interesting and joyful to them, because they can now abandon anything that causes suffering. For example, right thoughts, that is speaking about abandoning thoughts that cause you anger. Imagine a person abandoning any thoughts that causes any anger. They live such a happy life. They live right there, they experience what the Buddha called the middle path, cultivating right thoughts, cultivating wholesome thoughts, also cultivating harmless thoughts that are never harmful to you, never harmful to anyone else. Imagine such a person's life, what a life that is, what a blessing that kind of a person becomes. And that's what the Buddha said, bhavitabbancha bhavitam. What should be developed has been developed by me. And they are the 5 disciples who wanted the Buddha, who kind of forced and abandoned the ascetic Gautama when he started eating a little food so that his body has energy to practice the middle path. But they slowly understood that, freedom from suffering comes by developing the Eightfold Path. Right here, we can cultivate loving kindness. And from that moment, even a fraction of cultivating loving kindness can bring you so much freedom from this burning anger, burning anything like lust. When you have attachments, you are destined to suffer. But abandoning that right there, you practice the middle path. That way your livelihood becomes great, your action, your speech becomes kinder. It's beautiful to see that path being developed. And there you have a game between yourself, your mind, and you. And right there, you abandon any competition you have in the world. You are not competing with anyone. You are not even comparing yourself to anyone. You see where you are where your attachments are, where your suffering is. Right there, you begin to understand and apply the Yoniso Manasikara, rightful investigation, observing with the roots and letting go. And that process happens with the wisdom, with right mindfulness being cultivated and right concentration, stillness developed. And there, equanimity is where you have arrived, and you are now, when you are given the news, any bad news, you are not shaken, because right there, your mind received it, and that it vanished the moment you hear something else. So you see the true nature, the truest of it. And there you realize that expecting anything can lead to suffering, but staying in reality kind of removes the gap between these expectations, and you stay with the reality. And that's what mindfulness does. That your right mindfulness tells that you observe the experience right here, right now, and that a huge mass of suffering involving the 5 clinging aggregates, Pancha Upadana Skandha. Right there you see, the Buddha said in the first sermon, in brief, all these 5 clinging aggregates bring up suffering. And there, when you start to observe the 5 clinging aggregates coming into being and how they vanish, you are free. You are so free. And nobody can make you free unless you start seeing it for yourself. And that comes through cultivating the middle path, every limb of middle path. That's all I would say for now. Thank you, Bhante.
Yeah, thank you, Bhante Kusala, for sharing a lot of insights. It's very interesting, and I know Bhante Bodhi is about to leave. Bhante Bodhi, are you gone? Are you still here? I would like to have one more minute from you if you're still here.
I'm still here, but I don't have much time.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Bhante Bodhi, for joining the discussion, and we are very grateful to you. And I was just wondering whether you would have just 1 minute to share something about the second question, how these 3 events are important to you personally.
I think maybe we leave Bhante Yogavajra Rahula to elaborate on that. If I were to say something, then
Okay. Okay, Bhante, well, thank you so much.
okay.
Thank you, Bhante. Have a safe journey to California.
Okay, thank you.
And Bhante Yogavajra Rahula, you suggested this question. How do the 3 auspicious events in the Buddha's life pertain to us personally, especially the monastics? Would you like to share your insights?
Well, I'll talk on a kind of a personal basis about how I use those 3 events to get inspiration and also to remotivate myself to not, get lazy and to keep on practicing. Now, the birth, we say, okay, the Buddha was born and attained enlightenment, Parinibbana. So we are also born, right? We took birth in this life. And most of us monastics, it's very likely we had been monastics in a previous life, especially those of us who became a monastic at a very young age. We don't know for sure, but according to the sutras, that can very well be. And so anyway, we took a birth.
Yeah.
And then we have the occasion to meet the Dhamma. Like in my case, I didn't hear anything about the Buddha or the Dhamma until I was 24 years old. You know, but when I heard the Dhamma, it's like something opened up inside my heart. You know, it's like this is very familiar, and I just took like a fish, to the water with it, and the enlightenment. Now, we may not attain full enlightenment or in this lifetime. But any of the stages, but whatever insights and whatever freedom that we get from our practice, if we reduce our anger, we reduce our greed, we reduce our egotism, and so on, and we get those insights. That's a kind of a minor, enlightenment, and it's also the dying away. The parinibbana could be seen as the dying away of our defilements, because of course that's the definition of parinibbana, one attains full enlightenment. But if we don't attain full enlightenment, even if whatever progress we make in reducing the fetters, or even the hindrances and the fetters, and developing our mind in mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom, and dying to our old habits. We all have a lot of habits in the world, and especially as Westerners grew up with all kind of habits of bad speech and abusing things and greed and so on. So even dying to those habits, you could see as a kind of parinibbana.
Yeah.
I'm talking about in a kind of a superficial way, but nevertheless, that's the way that I have seen it, and I try to bring it into my own life and keep reminding myself that, I came to birth in this life, and there must have been a reason for that, and I had the right conditions to be able to hear the Dhamma and practice, and to make what I consider at least some progress on the path. And it's been going on like that my whole life. And so this is the way, whenever there's a, the Wesak comes about, I keep reflecting back and having that faith and that actually I was born in this life at the time of the teachings of the Buddha, and I were able to hear those teachings and at least gain some insights. And then the dying away of my bad habits from the previous time, and in the reduction and overcoming of certain defilements and so on. This is the way anyway that I personally take that into my own life and reflect on those three events of the Buddha's life. That if he could do it, and he said he could do it, other people can do it. And, I was amazed in Sri Lanka when I first came to Sri Lanka in 1974. I heard about Sri Lanka being a pure Buddhist country, and I thought I would come to Sri Lanka and I would see people meditating on every street corner and under every tree, and people attaining stages of the path, and that fantasy was quickly kind of overcome. But anyway, so but I also heard what surprised me, that even some monks were preaching that, there's too much sin in the world. They call it papakale, and it's impossible for anyone even to attain sotapanna in this life. I mean, I heard that even from some monks and lay people. And they would kind of see me meditating in the monastery, where I went to these monasteries like Tapawane and Candabodha, or especially Tapawane and other monasteries. And, the monks were kind of surprised that they saw me, practicing mindfulness and walking, almost all the time, which is the way I was doing a very intensive practice thing. But anyway, this idea that one could not even attain Magga and Pala, the first stage even, so really surprised me. And I didn't believe that. But anyway, but just having an idea of that can defeat you. Sure, not everyone is going to be able to do that. But if you have the idea that it's not even possible, then you yourself defeat yourself. So anyway, that's just what I wanted to share with you.
No, thank you, Bhante Yogacara, for sharing your insights. It's actually very motivational, very inspiring. How you see the Dhamma and how you contemplate. I think is a good. You're being a role model to all the monastics and including lay people. And I know there are a few hands raised. Bhante Pesel, are you here? Yeah.
Yes.
So how do you take these three auspicious events? How do they relate to you? What's your reflection?
Can all hear me?
Yeah.
Bhante, I would like to add for the first question that about the event of the Buddha's time.
We are trying to skip that one because we don't have much time. Maybe briefly,
okay.
just few seconds.
Bhante, in the Sutta Pitaka, the Pali Canon, we have the brief summary. And it is said that when Buddha conducted even a single Bhuktanvodana after the Dana, we are giving Bhuktanvodana. That Bhuktanvodana itself, it says in the commentaries that it is long more than the Digha Nikaya. So only Sutta Pitaka included only the essential part. So by going through the Pali Canon, we cannot make sure that we cannot find the evidence of the incidents of the Buddha's time. So that's what I want to add. Even in Sri Lanka, also some kind of argument going on about the place of the Buddha's appearance. Now, Nepal are claiming that the Buddha's place was from Nepal, and India is claiming that no, it is from India. Likewise, another group of people in Sri Lanka, they are claiming that the Buddha's place was in Sri Lanka. So argument is going on. So I'm not going to jump into that, Bhante. And the second thing, Bhante, under the second question, the birthing of the Buddha is, of course, it's a valuable thing, and also the enlightenment of also is a important thing because it's gaining something. But lots of people are questioning, even from us, passing away. Usually people consider the death is a kind of a unfortunate incident, no? But they are questioning me, how Bhante, passing away of Buddha it's a fortunate thing. Then the answer is that Bhante, when the passing away of the Buddhas or the enlightened one, that is the time where those enlightened beings completely attain the Nibbana. So there is one kind of a upadi mean, it's a burden like the Khanda upadi. They are completely relinquishing even the 5 aggregates, Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara. So that's why it's considered as a fortunate event. So that's why we celebrate the passing away of the Buddha. So it means that our great teacher had completely attained the Nibbana even when the passing away happened. That's why it's named as great Parinibbana. And also, another one, by going through this kind of teaching, we can understand the worldly masses considers gaining bring us the happiness. But actually, in the Dhamma, it is the opposite. Giving up giving up brings us the happiness. So when we can completely giving up each and everything, that is the complete happiness. So that's what happened when the enlightened beings gain their passing away. So that's why we consider especially these 3 events as the most auspicious and fortunate events. So that's what I want to add, Bhante.
Oh, thank you, Bhante Pesel, for sharing your insights. Next, okay, Venerable Trudel, you raised your hand. So what's your reflection on this second question? How these 3 events relate to you?
These 3 events are so important, and we give unfailing gratefulness to the existence of the one and only historical Gautama Buddha. Clinically speaking, the advancements of the minds of the younger generation, Gen Zoomer, is extremely scary of how intelligent and smart they actually really are. And now that poses an extreme challenge for everyone. It poses challenge to government. It poses challenge for educational department, because there's the flip coin side of how intelligent they are and how they could misuse that intelligence to doom Earth, actually. And I find that the Dhamma can and will withstand, without a doubt, impervious, unfailing, to help and mitigate the suffering in the days of tomorrow for all of our youths and the generation that is emerging. They have these lawyers in their minds, what I call it. And it's funny because these young students, they're fresh, and they get smart really quick. And so, you know, the teacher have to be the judge of the mind in order to redirect, validate, clarify, and redirect how the young student's mind jumps. We have to not only be mindful of ourselves, but to also be ultra mindful of how their minds jump, and to, you know, kind of like cross-examine them, kind of like in the courthouse. So when I reflect on the 3 events of his life, I don't think I will ever disrobe for life, just because I have unshakable faith and confidence over and over again, and it is renewing, it is refreshing. We start all over again every single day, reflecting on these 3 events and how we need to attain and enter the stream quickly because we're running out of time. So every year that people are alive and get to enjoy these 3 events, all in one setting or wherever you are in the world, you have an opportunity to do it again more intelligently, more smart. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ridel, for sharing your stats. And next, Bante Kusula raised his hand. Do you have more insights to share with us regarding the second question?
Yes, Bante. So I would ask everyone here to ask this question from themselves, like, why did the Buddha say upon his enlightenment that while he was still aging, subject to aging in his human life, not that he was subject to aging, that he has stopped aging. So when you ask that question from yourself, maybe then your attention goes to thinking, oh, he abandoned things that caused him to be in future circumstances, future birth, where aging will happen. So when you analyze the Dhamma, you can find the answer that anything, like Bhante Rahula mentioned earlier, anything that causes suffering to you can be abandoned, and by doing so, you can see the peacefulness that is arising in your own life. And right there, you start experiencing the blessings of the Dhamma. Dhammo have rakkati dhammachari. So I think that statement says that when you practice the Dhamma, when you practice the teaching itself begins to safeguard you, protect you, especially by protecting your own mind. And in Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha said, Thana metang vijjati samahite chitte dhammang patu bhavanti. Only in a concentrated mind that the experience, the true Dhamma appears. Netantanang vijjate. It cannot be the case that asamahite chitte dhamma patu bhavanti. In an unconcentrated mind, you may not be able to analyze the experience, the Dhamma, as it happens. So I think the Eightfold Path again highlights that we all need to, like in the Buddha's instructions, we all need to go find a root of a tree, an empty hut, and then allow the meditation to reveal the truth to you until you are no more suffering in this very human birth. Like Bhante Rahul said, we went through this period where many senior monks were saying that eradication of, like, becoming enlightened in this life is impossible, and we still have some residue, that some traces of that even at the end of a dana ceremony, after a meal offering, they say, may you become enlightened in the time of the next Buddha Metteya. It's as if you are telling, being a monk yourself, you are telling that you guys can do it now. Maybe you have to wait until the next Buddha. I think when we do go through such seasons, like Buddhism went through different periods, and we had to struggle on the way up until this date. So maybe when you abandon that kind of thinking and then come to whatever is available to us for practice, when we come to analyze it, I think right there we can see that we can experience the Dhamma here and now. Thank you, Bhante.
Yeah, thank you. Dhamma, of course, once practiced, can be realized right here now. That's the Buddha's nature of one of the great qualities of Dhamma is sandittika, right here now in this lifetime.
Exactly.
And Venerable Shantasobana raised his hand. You have more insights to share with us?
Thank you very much, Venerable Sirs. Actually, when it comes to this Vesak Day, and especially with these three occasions, what I want to mention, this is one of the things that when it comes to the Buddha's teaching, it's talk about the power of human mind. And we all come to this world, and at the same time, when we come, there are certain environment for us already. So when the Prince Siddhartha born to this world, and he chose this place very consciously, and the human world is that as we all born to this place is something, is a kind of like can bring the transformation for us. This is the ground for all of us to grow. So rather than just settling down here, we came here, and this is a ground to grow for all of us. So when it comes to his life, he had a very luxurious life, and everything there for him. And he had one thing, it is very important, even when it comes to today life, even in the conventional life, the most of people don't have a power to say no to that whatever they have. Because when we look for our own inner development, sometimes our own environment can become a barrier. So the Prince Siddhartha has ability to say no to that whatever they are for him. And that ability took him to next level to attain to the Buddhahood. So that means that we are living in this environment, and all our listeners and all that. So this Zoom meeting now keep going more few years now. So there are a lot of lay people keep following and listening, and they try to learn something. So what I want to tell, so sometimes you may experience your life believing this is what you deserve and this is your life. But when it comes to the Buddha's character, it always shows that whatever you have, not the end of your life. Maybe you are more better version than you think. There is something more better inside you. So that Prince Siddhartha attained to the Buddhahood, that attainment went through only by observing, recognizing, and understanding. There's nothing else. So we all, as human beings, we all have that same ability. Observing, understanding, and recognizing bring us the transformation. So today, as Venerable Trijao mentioned, and it's kind of like this artificial intelligence. It's like a flood, keep going around everywhere, and more than millions people every day downloading and following this Chat GPT. So it's become, people start to go through kind of like a believing this, all the machines technology than the power of human mind. But when it comes to the Buddhism, it always still, the most important thing is not the machine, the most important thing who is behind the machine. So that's mean the power of human mind. So, and at the same time, when it comes to the death, that what we see normally, person name and the birthday and the day that person died, that everywhere we see on the cemeteries, and so on the death notice, that is what it is. That means maybe the same person born in the same person died. But when it comes to the Buddha's life, with these three incidents, it clearly shows the person, the born in one place with the certain conditions and went through something, and we call the Tathagata, the person who go through that, he went through things and he transformed himself and passing away as completely different person. So there are sometimes we no need to be the same every day like that. There are sometimes people, I know personally, they born in the same house and they say, they don't give it to their children or anybody. They say, I want to die in this house. Even they don't want to die hospital. They say, take me to my house. Why? Because I want to die there. So like that, we have this deeper attachment to our own inner existence. So with these three incidents, what we can see as Buddhists, we all have ability to transform, but that transformation comes only by developing our awareness, our understanding, and our observation. So that is what I want to add. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Bhante Shantasobana. Wherever to now, hold your thought, okay? Let me get to Bhante Jayasar from New Jersey. Would you like to share your insights regarding these three auspicious events, how they are so important to you personally?
Thank you, Bhante. It's good to see the Mahasangha here. It's been a while since I've been here, so it's good to see you all again. When I think about these events, I think the of the three, the one that really is most important to me is the ability to actually become awakened. As somebody who was a truth seeker my whole life and studied lots of different religions and different paths, what it came down to was I had never come across anything more true than the Buddha's Four Noble Truths in my studies and my explorations, and gradually coming to accepting the very real possibility that this is not my only life, and I could be born again and again. I could be stuck in this horrible thing called samsaric, the samsaric state. Yeah. Gradually, the idea of becoming awakened sounded much, much better. Yeah. And this is such a, I love the Dhamma that this is set up, that a being called the Sammasambuddha, a bodhisattva, can arise in the world and find the path when it's lost. That even though anicca occurs and over time things get lost, it always comes back again. Like that's such a wonderful thing for me, and the fact that there is an end, that there is cessation. So when I think of the three peers, the three events, it is that awakening that I think is most important to me. And that I think of often, right? The Buddha has gone through parinibbana, and the Buddha, the Buddha told us that we must work hard so that we can also, become awakened. And so he is gone, but his teachings and the Dhamma is still here. Thanks to him, the Dhamma is still here for a time, and I don't subscribe to the belief that it's too corrupted that we can't become awakened. Neither does my preceptor Bhante Gunaratana, obviously. And I'm happy that even though I don't know if I can fully become awakened in this lifetime, I'm hoping, I'm shooting for it. But if I can't, at least I can, you know, in a short lifetime to come, hopefully. So I think of, to me, the most important is that ability for us to actually end our suffering. You know, that this path has a point and an end, and that's what is most important to me.
Yeah, I think that's great. And Bhante Jaya, you never know. Once your paramis are complete, then you might become, you know, you can accomplish your goal before you're dead. So keep practicing. And I would like to hear something from Bhante Pevaratana from Pittsburgh. Bhante Pevaratana, how these three auspicious events are important to you personally.
Thank you, Bhante. My veneration to all the monastic masters. Yeah, Bhante, I just feel so grateful, so grateful to the fact that, Buddha appeared in this world.
Yeah.
And when you think about, and Buddha said that all the, worldlings, people are immersed in the ignorance, just like, like an eggshell. Or like everyone is like inside the eggshell, that we will not be able to see the reality of life without the realization of the Buddha, and we'll be immersed in darkness, and we will complain to many people for our suffering. We'll either so there's no way that we can really come to know and the possibility of freedom of suffering. So I just feel deeply grateful that the Buddha was born to this world, and he realized this truth and he taught this truth, and we were fortunate to be born in a period where we can find this Dhamma. So I just feel deeply grateful.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Bhante Pevaratana. So final thought, Venerable Trudeau, what's in your mind?
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Vesak gets everyone all excited. I've raised my hand 3 times. It's a rare thing. All right. So when we look at the 3 events, right? Birth and death. It was exactly that the Buddha told his father no. And the ministers that his father sent to try to reel him back. When you study the biography of the Buddha, they made a very compelling case. It was literally heart-wrenching when they said, Siddhartha, you have to go back. It's your father. He's suffering. You have to go back. This is the wrong time for you to go forth. They use so many rhetorics that I cry just reading it alone. But Siddhartha, our Lord Buddha, replied very skillfully. He says, well, that suffering back at home, I totally understand, but there is a greater suffering that is samsara. And he was so determined that he was willing to give up everything. And he told his father, please forget about me, because I've already forgotten about you. And this is the path that I have decided to clearly take. Had he not having the sheer determination, we wouldn't have these 3 auspicious events until this very day. And so I invite everyone to probably go back to the biography of the Buddha to read in details, because it just gives so much joy that he was born on this very planet that everyone is walking on. He was raised on this earth and subsequently achieved full enlightenment here. And everyone have that capacity. And furthermore, just to comment on Venerable Santa Sopana about the chat GPT, is that it does have the potential and likely chance to distort the Dhamma. However, we are the living Dhamma. The Sangha is the living Dhamma modern day. That means for the next generation of monks, young monks, we must and we have to be that living proof and embodiment, so that people can see, in fact, that stream entry is a possibility, and everything else prescribed in the book is a possibility. because with the existence of technology, it could be very funny in the foreseeable future with the distortion of the truth, the absolute truth. And with that, I yield back the floor to Venerable Saranampala. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Ridao. So we have come to the end of the discussion. So I would like to respectfully invite our Uparatana Bhante Nayaka Mahatero to recite the Patimokkha verses today, if possible.
Thank you so much, everybody. Done job, and we had to talk furthermore about Dhamma. And Dhamma is always important to us, and all the dates, not worry about it. So keep. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa sabba papassa akaranang කුසලස්ස උපසම්පදා සචිත්ත පරියෝදපනං ඒතම් බුද්ධාන ශාසනං කන්ති පරමන්තපෝතිතික්ඛා නිබ්බානම් පරමං Vadanti Buddha Nahi Pabjito Parupagati Samano Hoti Parang Vihetayanto Anupavado Anupagato Patimokkhecha Sangvaro Matanyutacha Bhattasming Pantancha Sayanasanang Adhicittecha Ayogo Etam Buddhana Sasanang.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, Bhante Uparatana, for beautifully reciting these Patimokkha verses for us today. And it was such a very productive and meaningful discussion we had with the presence of the Most Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi and also the Most Venerable Bhante Yogavaccha Rahula. And they suggested these great questions and issues today. And we learned a lot. We shared a lot of insights. I'm very grateful to all of you for sharing this gift of Dhamma with everyone on this holy weekend, sacred weekend, Vesak weekend. So I'm wishing you nothing but all happiness in your life. So by discussing Dhamma, this was a meditation practice we did together collectively, and we purified our mind and heart. And with pure and wholesome mind and heart, I would like to make this wish for all of you by the grace and power of all these meritorious deeds. May you all be blessed with longevity, good health, happiness, and peace. May you be able to share more Dhamma with all the people around the world for great benefit of everyone, to liberate all sentient beings from this cycle of life. And may Devas, celestial beings, continue to protect and guard you with the divine blessings for your health, for your health and safety. Sabbe Satta Bhavantu Sukhitata. May all sentient beings be happy. Thank you. Good night from Toronto, Canada. I will see you in 2 weeks' time. Bye-bye.